I'm Ashton from the Crypto Coin Show, and today on Blockchain Interviews, we have Stew, co-founder of CheddaToken. Stew, welcome to the show, and thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks. Really appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, excited to dive into the community that your team has been building out with CheddaToken. I know there's quite an interesting backstory. I would love to start out with just sort of a high level on, what is Chedda and the CheddaToken, and then we can dive into everything.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Yeah, just from a high level, it's a community token. We are trying to build out, kind of bridge the real life and digital life. There's always been a focus on, really the digital side for tokens and crypto in general, and we want to kind of bridge that gap between doing things in real life and digital life. And so we've had get-togethers. We call them get-togethers, where we'll have meetings and everyone kind of gets together. We'll have some food, music, events. Kind of a big hangout. Additionally, we would like to get people involved with, going to sports games, concerts, just all sorts of things like that to really, you know, put some faces to the crypto world that you're
Mm-hmm.
trading with. And it's not just totally anonymous all the time. Of course, it is crypto still, so you've got that option if you want it. But we've built out a space in the metaverse as well, so we could do digital, quote unquote, digital real life stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
that's really the goal. There's bridging the real world and the digital world with us.
Yeah, no, I love that because I feel like there's a lot of people, especially ones who haven't really got involved in digital assets yet, that they really need some kind of connection to figure it out. And, just it's like paper money you can hold in your hand. Crypto, even though it's on your mobile wallet in your phone, maybe it's still like there's this disconnect. And I've spoken at crypto meetups and clubs for years, and it's just so much extra value to have like a community of like-minded people that you can talk about digital assets with. So
Yeah,
I,
and
lo- I,
we've
I
definitely
love that.
seen that as well. Yeah, with our existing community, a lot of them, this is their first time at getting into anything crypto, and just being able to have that connection, builds out a little bit more trustworthiness.
Very cool. And what inspired this and started this in your journey in blockchain, and then how you and the team actually started Chedda?
Yeah, so actually, it's a little bit of a backstory here. This goes all the way back to, man, in 2021, and we've got Boone here is another co-founder of ours as well, and she'll pipe in, I'm sure, occasionally here. But going back all the way to 2021, uh, original group launched it, and it went viral pretty quickly. A couple of NBA players jumped on promoting it. Um, and I think the market cap ran up to about $2 billion, just real
Whoa.
fast. Um, it was back in the time when a lot of staking was going on, and so we had a staking contract that was built out by a third party developer. They wound up rugging and pulling a lot of the funding out of that, so that obviously crashed the token. Um, a lot of the community stuck around to kind of repair what was done. Um, the people that came on to repair it then also went and rugged. And so at that time, Boone
Yeah,
and
that
I,
was fun. That was
yeah,
so much fun back then.
that time Boone and
Yeah.
I were just community members. We had bought in with our own money, and we're just we hadn't been involved in the development.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we went ahead and took over things, and this we started this process maybe 2 years ago. It's been such a long time now. We raised a little bit of funding, and we actually went in and to completely sever from the old guard, we rewrote a new contract, uh, and we're calling it Chedda V2. We did a little bit of a silent ghost launch uh, earlier this year, and we had a claim process. So if you had the original Chedda, we big things we really wanted, coming from the community ourselves, we want to make sure the community was made right as possible. And so um, we held a claim when we initially launched. If you held, the first version of Chedda still at a certain date, we took a snapshot on the blockchain. you had the right to claim 1-to-1 old token for new token, and that was it. So everyone who wanted to claim a new token in the new token, they were able to do so, make them whole, and then we were able to now be where we're at with V2. So it's a completely clean contract, totally severed from everyone else, and it allows us now to go down the path of really hammering in what was, we all thought, B1's purpose and what we saw as the vision, and continuing that legacy. So without the rugs and without the bad actors.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an absolutely free claim too for
Right.
everyone to get. It wasn't, it was pretty well thought out, that anybody that went through all of the pain up until then and they stuck around, that was basically, call it a reward for, going through. I call it trauma bonding. We all kind of trauma bonded as a community. And we had an old Discord and everyone was very involved in there. We all talked to each other all the time. And also utilizing a lot of people's knowledge and base and ideas to get this relaunch going. But one of the biggest things was trying to be, which you don't ever really see in this sector, is very fair to the people that really did get hurt. So it was almost the long and short of like the peasants storming the castle, right? And they take over the project. So it's not just, myself and Stu. It's a huge community of people that just kind of got together and decided to just, relaunch and keep going with a lot of the utility that we had before.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
truly was wallet holders. Truly wallet holders. That's it.
Yeah,
So,
I've seen around, in the distance, like these what they call CTOs or community takeovers or truly decentralized community-based projects. But I actually haven't spoken to any in depth. And there's always a backstory to that. How did the community take over, and how is it sort of staying decentralized? So it's really fascinating to hear the story.
well, one of the things that Stu left off is it wasn't just one situation or two situations. There was actually three situations. So, okay, I'm using the word situation, AKA rug. I mean, we literally were triple rugged, triple three times. And all of these people just kind of stuck together. And I think one reason they stuck together is that during the original launch and everything, all of us had met in person. Like you could put a face to Boone, you could put a face to Stu, you could put a face to a million, 400 or 500 people that were in this group. We would have these get-togethers in person. They were big parties too. There was at a brewery and another one at a bar and restaurant, and people are out partying and hanging out and talking to each other about crypto or talking about each other in real life, and you just got to know these people. And the one thing that kind of just drew Stu and I in to really step up and do this is, number one, both of us had a decent background in crypto. And I always say I understand just enough to be dangerous. Like I can read blockchain, I know where things are going. Stu understands a lot of the analytics and the technical side of it. And we have another person on our team. And, it's been a big journey. But when you meet people, it's another level of emotion too, where you just want to do the right thing, and you want to help, and and then, of course you're pissed off too, you're angry, and you all kind of get together and bond. And when I stood around at these parties and I saw people in their Chedda hats and their Chedda shirts and their CheddaToken necklaces and high-fiving, and all the guys are broing out, and there's women there, and then they've got their children there, and everybody is there. It's just another level of familiarity that makes you kind of come together. So that's a little bit of that story, is how we kind of just sort of dove in.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a good time. And Stu, with all of that adversarial actions that happened and now rewriting into V2, where does it stand in the security and the strength and ensuring that everything goes uphill in a good way from here?
Yeah, and so I think the big thing is, we didn't change from a tokenomics standpoint. We didn't change too much on the contract. Um, the big thing that we did add in is the ability to move everything over into a DAO at a point. Um, we are in the process of putting that all together. Um, Boone's had a really good vision on that, and I kind of agree with her. But it's one of those things where, with it being really pretty nascent in our relaunch and trying to get the token off the ground, you can't just throw these things into a DAO and expect it to go, take off on its own. And so, um, Boone and myself and the others on the team kind of see ourselves as a shepherd to get it into the DAO. That's the ultimate goal is get it into the DAO. Then we can have the really community based token that all decisions get made through the community. We'll have a mechanism for submitting proposals, voting on proposals. Um, you know, Boone was talking about the social aspect of getting together. We can vote on get-togethers and stuff, but we also would like to have spots for people to get in and go network. You're all in a business together, or you're in the same industry and you want to go network with people in that industry. We have a connection for that. Build out platforms and stuff like that for people to get together, not just from a party social aspect, but also from a networking, spreading knowledge, helping people not just become more knowledgeable about Chedda, but crypto in general, or any other subject people want to talk about. So
Definitely. And with regards to the DAO, and I'm curious, when you have these in-person meetups, and especially if there's newer entrants into crypto getting involved, is there an advantage to having it on this blockchain versus that blockchain and the token, and making it easy for newer entrants to adopt?
yeah, that's funny you asked that, because Boone can tell you about it too. But we flip flopped back and forth when we were relaunching V2, whether or not
Oh yeah.
stay on Ethereum. We looked at Arbitrum, Solana, uh, Base, a couple of other chains out there, and the original was written on Ethereum. We went ahead and just stayed with Ethereum. The security, it's an ERC20 token. The security backing of it, it's hard to beat the amount of devs that are working on Ethereum. If we needed to ever update anything or change something, we could find a dev to help us out on Ethereum really easily. Additionally, all the work that the Ethereum Foundation has done in updating the network lately, when it first launched, people were making trades on Uniswap, and every trade cost you $150. And so, it was so expensive just to do any sort of transaction. Now it's just a couple of cents. It's made it much more affordable. And for us, that was the big thing, was the affordability of making a trade. I would say most of our people on the first one, you got some large whales that come in and buy, thousands of dollars of tokens at a time. But a lot of people are buying $100 at a time, $10, $50. And if you have to pay $150 to make a trade to buy $50 worth of tokens, it's like, it just doesn't really make much sense. And so we looked at all the other chains when we were launching V2 to decide if, something made more sense. And at the end of the day, with the advancements that Ethereum's made, we stuck around with Ethereum.
Yeah, I think it's a smart choice. All of those options are the ones that I would be thinking of as well for top viable options. And it seems like some of these layer twos are getting a lot of traction, but the costs on Ethereum, and there's the network effect, it's the biggest of them all. And the costs are pretty low at the moment. So let's hope it stays that way. And I think there's always the ability to pivot into layer twos on Ethereum without having to redo everything like you would if you went to Solana or something. So
yeah, and the other thing too is, we mentioned before, a lot of the people who are in it now are first time crypto people. And so making it as
Mm-hmm.
simple to onboard them as possible was really big. Some of the layer twos have, confusing bridges that people would have to, go buy Ethereum or some other ERC20 token to, USDC or, a stable coin, then bridge it and swap it and then go buy. And it's just like, let's keep it as simple as possible. You can go use your Coinbase wallet, connect up to Uniswap and buy some Chedda. It's
Yeah, that was a huge thing, that a lot of the people that were originally in Cheddar, they had never even had Bitcoin or Ethereum,
Mm-hmm.
let alone, having to onboard people. I remember back in the day, hey, you have to do A, B, C, and D. And then, they're like, oh my God, the gas is as much as what I'm buying. So, when those levels came down, it just made sense to us to keep it
Mm-hmm.
familiar to people, if that makes sense. I'm a huge fan of quite a few projects out there that we could have launched on, and I would say we probably took about 10 months of just diving in and interviewing developers and looking at
Mm-hmm.
teams, and
Mhm.
only to circle right back to where we started. And it I think what it did was it just confirmed the fact that that's where we should be, and that's where we're going to relaunch, and that's exactly what we did. And we found that during the claim process,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
we had a really good development team build that contract and do the onboarding on the front end, and it was very, very seamless for people. So
Mm-hmm.
that was super important, that we understood that a lot of people had a basic knowledge, and we didn't want to make it even more difficult over what had already happened before. So that
Mm-hmm.
was one of the huge decision factors.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
usually the first choice is the best, and and especially right now because Ethereum is being picked up by major institutions, and they're buying billions, and the ecosystem seems like it's continuing to grow, although it already has the largest network effect. So
Right.
that's great. And Stu, you mentioned back in the day in the original launch, there was also like a staking mechanism that it went south in the end, but I think that actually adds an interesting value to the ecosystem. Is there any kind of token utility or interactions that can happen within the token besides just holding it in the ecosystem right now?
No, and that's something we did. We went back and forth a lot on. Is like, do we bring back staking? I think part of the reason that it ran so hard so fast on the original one is it was a limited liquidity pool on
Yeah.
Uniswap, and so um, the staking mechanism was obviously brought around as a way to help out liquidity and stuff like that. And we haven't implemented. Not to say that we won't ever.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to get a little bit further in building out the community stuff before we do anything like that again. It would be the bright side is the dev team. It's a group called Rock and Block that we've worked with to build out the new contract. They're total professionals. They're awesome. They
Mm-hmm.
helped us really well. We could go back to them at any time and say, hey, let's get a staking contract put together so we can improve liquidity. But um, I don't think we're there yet. It's not something we're exploring at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always on the back of our mind for sure.
For sure, that's good to know. And in
I
terms,
feel like, yeah, I'm just going to pop
yeah,
on
go
that
ahead, Boone.
subject real quick. Sorry about that.
No.
I think one of the biggest optics with us too is that I wanted people to realize, when we relaunched, it wasn't just to pump the token. We wanted some stability,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where we are now. Like, we ran pretty hard, pretty
Mm-hmm.
quick on the relaunch too,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
because we have so many people that they were excited, they were ready for this, but we wanted to give it a little bit of stability. We didn't want to go out and just start onboarding, NBA guys or MMA guys or anything like that in the beginning. Just kind of
Mm-hmm.
give it some stability, let everybody regroup, listen to them too with their ideas and everything on our roadmap, onto the DAO, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with that, it also to me gave the optic that the new foundation this is built on is not there to just pump and dump. We're
Mm-hmm.
here, we're building, we're working on things in the background. one of the biggest things to me was two of the biggest things was working with Rock and Block, who are complete professionals. They are complete professionals, and also getting on with Crowdcreate. Those were two huge accomplishments for a token like this. So that's all I wanted to pop in
That's
about.
good. And with the roadmap, the entrance of a DAO, and also you mentioned, Stu, about in-person meetings, digital meetings, and then the Discord, which seems like it's pretty active. So what's the activity level like? How often are you guys actually doing these kinds of meetups or like working in the Discord?
Yeah, we haven't actually had a get together yet since we've done the V2 launch. I know Boone's been talking about getting one going. It's been, since it has been a relatively small group, it's large to me and Boone, but comparatively to the whole crypto world, it's a relatively small group that's been there. Now it's been a little bit geographically isolated to maybe like the West Coast. Um, so we've had, I don't know, over the life when it was going and blowing, we had two or three of them out in the West Coast area, and then but that's been about it. We would love to get it to grow with the community, so we could do maybe once a quarter, something like that, at different cities around the U.S. Obviously we're going to have to take into account where the demographics are most. You can't have a party for one out in the middle of nowhere, but
Yeah.
that was also one of the big pushes though for us to get some metaverse space available. Is now we can maybe reach out and have a game night or a movie night or something, or once we get to our DAO establishment, we could have board meetings in the metaverse, where we can go ahead and still have a space for people to get together and interact socially. You may not be quote unquote face to face, but you could still connect with your fellow community members and stuff like that.
Definitely. Yeah, well, it sounds like you guys need to plan a big party for this V2.
I I know we've been tossing around like Vegas and stuff and having a big blowout party there, and so maybe that's still on the roadmap here soon, but we've got to get those details together.
Definitely. So, is the best place to follow along with the updates for the events and the DAO and everything is mainly in Discord?
Yeah, that'd be our most active piece of social media. We do have Twitter, or I guess X. We've got an Instagram, but most of our just and Boone and I usually pop in a couple times a day. We're around in Discord, and so if you ever want to reach out and talk to us, that's the best way to get to us. I'd say.
That sounds great. And you mentioned the DAO on the roadmap. Is there any more details on that or any other things that you wanted to mention in terms of upcoming stuff?
Um, really, it's the DAO is again, kind of like I said before, with like the technology and the idea behind the actual token. Nothing too groundbreaking. It's going to be essentially a board that's elected by the community. Um, you can propose, you can put in proposals. We can then put it up for a vote by the community, and there'll be a mechanism for um, uh, how you vote. The number. It's not just it's not going to be just a one-to-one. Someone can come in and buy 1 billion tokens, and they then control essentially the DAO. There'll be a quadratic mechanism to the number of tokens you have for being able to vote. Keep it as we really want to keep it democratic as possible. Um, that still has a little bit of work and development to get built out. I'd say we're, gosh, 8 to 12 months out before having that really in place. Um, Outside of that, we've got some NFT assets that we want to launch out as well. I think this is a really interesting part because and Ben and I talk about this all the time too, but like we've seen the NFT market is, compared to 3 4 years ago when it was really going off, it's not as strong of a market anymore. People don't want to just buy a PFP profile picture anymore, and just be a digital asset. Um, Going in with the theme of Chedda being, bridging the gap between digital and real life. We want to have, swag associated with the NFT, but it also gets you, access to VIP parties or, stuff like that. It's not just here's a piece of art. It's a actual connection to real world stuff.
Well, yeah, we have a lot of people that are in the community that are, I hate to use the word well connected, but they are, and so if you want to get, we would send, we'd do a giveaway, and wallet holders would be VIPs at an MMA fight or an NBA game, and that was literally a phone call to someone in the community, and the difference is we knew them. I have their cell number. It's not just me contacting someone on Discord. And even better yet, all of those people have reached back out. They were in the claim process and they're like, let us know what we need to do to help out. We're here, So coming up with all the incentivized um, uh, 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 items and things like that are where it's at, and people do, they love that. So when we would do a giveaway, it was always a big deal, and we do these token necklaces, and everyone just goes bananas over them, and they're fun. And everybody has one, and you get a chain, and you get a chain, and you get a chain. And, so associating that NFT with some of the giveaways and the tangible, you're making things more tangible also in life and in the virtual world and digital world. So, making that crossover, that was always a lot of fun, and we're definitely deeply involved in integrating all of that into those NFTs.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I definitely think NFT collection or a few, and mixing in real world value in it as well would benefit CheddaToken. So I'll be looking forward to checking that out. I can leave the link for the Discord and the other socials, the platform, in the show notes below as well.
Yep, that'd be great.
Awesome, guys. I really appreciate you taking the time. Wishing you guys all the best on everything in the community. Looking forward to seeing some real world events or metaverse events pop up, NFT collection, DAO, everything else that you guys are working on, and wishing you all the best. And I would love to follow up again in the near future.
Yeah,
Hey,
thank
that
you.
sounds great. We look forward to giving you some updates as we knock them out.